The Billionaire and the Fisherman. In 2010, a team of researchers at Princeton University made a discovery that shocked the world. For decades, people had believed a simple idea. More money equals more happiness. Work harder, earn more, buy more, and eventually you'll arrive at a place called happiness. At least that's what everyone thought. But the data told a different story. And strangely enough, a fisherman had understood the answer long before the scientists did. Let me explain. On a quiet morning in a small coastal village, the sun rose slowly over the ocean. The waves rolled gently onto the shore. Seagulls drifted through the sky. And a fisherman named Samuel was finishing his work for the day. It wasn't even noon. His boat was already docked. His fishing net was full, and his smile was effortless. Samuel sold enough fish to feed his family. Enough to repair his boat. Enough to live. Nothing more, nothing less. Every afternoon, he spent time with his children. He laughed with friends, played music in the evenings, and watched the sun disappear beyond the horizon. To him, life felt complete. Then one day, everything changed. A helicopter appeared over the village. Its blades thundered through the air. People rushed outside. Children pointed toward the sky. And moments later, one of the richest men in the world stepped onto the beach. His name was Victor, a billionaire, owner of companies spread across continents, a man whose net worth exceeded the GDP of some countries, a man who had spent 40 years climbing toward success, climbing toward wealth, climbing toward a future he believed would finally make him happy. As Victor walked along the shore, he noticed Samuel resting beside his boat. The fisherman looked relaxed, peaceful, satisfied, something Victor hadn't felt in years. Curious, he approached him. "Why are you sitting here?" Victor asked. "You could be fishing." Samuel smiled. "I already caught enough fish today." Victor laughed. "But if you caught more fish, you could earn more money." Samuel nodded politely. "And then what?" Victor's eyes lit up. "Then you could buy a larger boat. And then you'd catch even more fish. And then you could hire workers. And then you could own an entire fleet. And then?" Victor smiled confidently. "Then you could become rich." Samuel paused. "And then?" Victor spread his arms. "Then you could retire. You could relax, spend time with your family, enjoy your days, watch the ocean, do whatever makes you happy." For a moment, neither man spoke. Then Samuel looked toward the sea and quietly replied, "But that's exactly what I'm doing right now." Silence. The billionaire stared at him, and for the first time in years, he had no answer. The truth is, most of us live like Victor. We're constantly chasing the next milestone, the next promotion, the next salary increase, the next achievement, believing that happiness exists somewhere ahead of us, always one step further, always just beyond reach. But psychologists have spent decades studying this phenomenon, and what they've found is fascinating. In 1978, researchers Philip Brickman, Dan Coates, and Ronnie Janoff Bullman studied lottery winners, people who had suddenly become rich. The expectation was simple. These individuals should become permanently happier. After all, they had won millions. But that's not what happened. Over time, many returned close to their previous levels of happiness. Psychologists later called this phenomenon hedonic adaptation. Human beings adapt. The new car becomes normal. The dream house becomes ordinary. The promotion becomes expected. What once felt extraordinary quickly becomes routine. And so we continue chasing more, and more, without ever arriving. Victor knew nothing about these studies, but he was living them. Every time he reached a goal, another appeared. Every time he achieved success, satisfaction faded. His life had become an endless horizon, a destination that moved every time he got closer. That night, he couldn't sleep. For the first time in decades, he asked himself a question. What if I've spent my entire life climbing the wrong mountain? The question haunted him, for months, then years, until one day he made a decision. He began reducing his workload. He spent more time with his family. He stopped postponing life, stopped delaying happiness, stopped treating joy as a future reward, and slowly something remarkable happened. He began feeling alive again, not because he had more money, but because he finally had more moments, more conversations, more laughter, more sunsets, more life. In 2010, Princeton researchers Daniel Kahneman and Angus Deaton published a famous study showing that while income can improve life satisfaction, emotional well-being does not increase forever as wealth grows. Beyond a certain point, more money has diminishing returns. In other words, money can solve many problems, but it cannot solve the problem of meaning. It cannot buy purpose. It cannot buy love. It cannot buy time, and it cannot buy enough tomorrows. Most people hear this story and assume it's about money. It's not. It's about postponing life. It's about sacrificing today for a future that never seems to arrive. It's about believing that happiness is waiting somewhere ahead, when in reality, life is happening now. The fisherman understood something the billionaire had forgotten. Success is a wonderful servant, but a terrible master. And if you're not careful, you can spend your entire life preparing to live without ever truly living. So here's a question. If you finally achieved everything you're working for, what would you do? Who would you spend time with? How would you live? Now ask yourself something even more important. Why aren't you doing at least part of that today? Because one day you'll discover what the fisherman already knew. The goal isn't to build a life you can eventually enjoy. The goal is to build a life worth enjoying along the way.